Welcome to Music Loop Podcast, brought to you by ASME SA Chapter. This is your very excited, happy, friendly podcast host, Chris Narraway. Music Loop is a podcast for people who want to reach out, connect and be inspired. Music Loop is designed to create a connection point for educators to support their involvement with music education. Whether you are a classroom practitioner or music specialist, this is an opportunity to reach out, offer support to others, ask questions and take action. Get involved in music education.
Welcome to episode 5 of Music Loop, titled The Power of Passion. During this series of podcasts, our team will be talking to the many brilliant educators around the state and ask them to share their story. Our focus will be on those who clearly demonstrate the goals of our podcast to reach out, connect, be inspired. My guest today has a wonderful, colourful, multifaceted story to tell. Stories of family, work, challenges, and an enduring passion for educating the world about the power of singing. Anyone who's met this wonderful person will know she's a force to be reckoned with and the embodiment of the power passion has in educating others. Professionally, Gabby Freer is a Music Education Strategy Network Field Officer. She's chair of Kodai SA and conductor with the Public Schools Music Festival. I'm told she is an excellent cook, a great gardener, producing a lot of her food, and I've seen the evidence of the gardening anyway. She is a mother and a grandmother, and I'm sure a very busy lady. When talking to Gabby about music education, her passion for the value of children being exposed to music, in particular being able to join in singing and the difference it makes in children, is evident, and we'll hear from Gabby about that during this broadcast. Gabby, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Tell me, how did all this start, this passion for you? Did it start as a child?
I always just loved music, and when I grew up in Switzerland. My parents were, I would say, lower middle class, so there was no real money to, pay for lessons or things like that. But in Switzerland, the culture is that music is embedded in everything. So there is choirs in every little village. There is a ladies' choir. There is a children's choir. There is a men's choir. But I really wanted to learn an instrument as well. Music was taught in primary school. So you have a lesson every week. But for me, that was not enough. I wanted more. But because of our financial constraints, the only way I could learn an instrument was joining a youth band, right, where they paid for your lessons, paid for your instrument, and paid for your uniform. And then you had to be in the marching band. So I learned the clarinet first. And then I always wanted to learn the piano, but we did not have the money to have a piano. So then when I went to teacher training college, I actually had to learn the piano. And then it became a little bit like, it's a bit too hard doing two things at once with both hands after having been playing just one line for so long. And it was almost a bit of a letdown, but it was all right. As a training, pre-service teacher, you actually, in Switzerland, you had to learn either piano or guitar.
Right, and you chose the piano.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
And we then got a piano as well, so that was great.
So it sounds as if it was part of just who everyone was, music. It just was a natural thing for you to do, a natural environment for people to sing and to be performing and... easy for everyone.
It's just part of what you do in cultural life. So you have got performances, each little community choir or the church choir, they do concerts, and people go to it, and it's bringing the people together, and people sing in parts. That's, you harmonise. When we were doing the dishes, we would just sing and harmonise to it, and that's just what we did. Yeah.
And everyone did it?
Yeah.
All
yeah,
your
I would
friends,
say.
your family?
Oh, yeah, it was just the way we, For me, it was more the marching band first, and then in teacher training college, I was very, very lucky. We had a really, really good choir conductor, and I joined the chamber choir, and we were asked to be, extras at the opera in Zurich, and had some marvellous, absolutely fantastic opportunities to work with world-class conductors like Arnoncourt and Schulte. So it was just this time when you're young, you take everything for granted. Looking back now, doing Saul with Arnoncourt in Zurich on stage, it's just like, wow. But when we did it, it was just,
It was a natural extension of what you were learning.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you wanted to be a teacher. Did you? Was that another ambition, not only the piano, but a teacher, or was the piano part of the...
No, it was from the first day of school.
Really?
I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I knew that's just what I wanted to be. It was quite tricky because in my family, no one ever went to university or to higher training college. So I actually had to fight to be able to do that, because the culture was very much in Switzerland, a lot of people go and do apprenticeships.
Right.
And so that's the path for normal people. It was very much, about 20% would go on to gymnasium and then do university, and teacher training was part of that. You had to do matric, and I had to fight. So I got in, and to me it was fabulous. It was really, I loved learning all the time. But then the upshot of it was, after 5 years of teacher training, I actually had to go and teach, because my father would tell me every day how much I had cost the state to be able to do that training, because I wanted to go and do vocal training. I wanted to go to the con because my love of singing had really blossomed, and I had started single studies at the con. So, but there was no way I would have been able to just do another degree without giving back to the state, what I cost. So I worked for 3 years as a primary school teacher.
And gave up that dream. When you called...
No.
No?
No, I kept singing, and I kept doing single studies.
Yep.
And then I loved the teaching part. I was teaching in a quite affluent part of Switzerland, just outside Zurich, and I was teaching middle school. And in Switzerland, when you have got a class, you don't have it just for a year, you've got them for 3 years. So by the time you have got them as 6th graders, which will be here 7th graders, they're part, you're like one big family. But the upshot was, because I was in this affluent part, most of these students were deemed to go to higher education places, regardless of if they were able to or not. That's the path for them.
Right.
So I found that was really confronting, because I knew some of the students that was not where they should go. And to work with parents who were very affluent, bankers, lawyers, things like that, to tell them that, no, for your child it's not the best path. Being a very young teacher was really, really stressful. So after 3 years, I thought, no, I'll rather go and do my passion, which was study music.
So you'd left teaching?
Yes, I left teaching.
Despite what your father was saying about having to give back?
I did 3 years, so come on, that was enough.
And you went back to study?
I went back to study,
right.
But I had married by then, and when I started studying full-time, a vocal degree, I was expecting our first child. And being young and foolish, I thought, oh, yeah, that's easy. I can study with a baby. Yes, that very quickly proved not to be a very good idea. Theory class with a baby, screaming baby, is not the best thing. So I just kept doing the practical part, but did not do the degree.
Okay.
Yes. And then we had more children and we moved to Australia.
And you moved to Australia from
Yes.
Switzerland.
Yeah, because my husband, Mark, he is Australian.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was that for you? Was that I know Switzerland, not the German part of Switzerland, but I know that and I can imagine it would have been an incredible culture shock for you to come from an environment like Zurich to Australia. Where in Australia did you come?
We first moved to Canberra because Mark is from Canberra.
Right.
And it was absolute culture dead.
Absolutely.
I just thought it was just like, what is this?
How many years ago was that?
That was in 1988. So
yes,
32 years ago. Yeah.
Not much happening in Canberra as far as the arts were concerned.
Actually, we went back to Canberra and Judy Klingen, who is, I would say, one of also the stalwarts of music education in Australia. She's not that well known outside her little circle, but she was one of the first ones who went to Hungary and studied at Liszt Academy, studied the Hungarian method of music education.
Yes.
Going back to Kodai. So she brought that all with her to Canberra. Mark, as a child, was one of her first choristers in the Canberra Boys Choir. So when we came back, she had built up a whole culture of singing with children's choir, and she had a little performance group called Gaudeamus, which did some musicianship classes for early years up till adults. She is a prolific writer, so she has written a lot of children's operas and children's musicals. And when we came back, she just nabbed me and said, "You're a teacher, you can sing. I'm going on a sabbatical. You're going to teach my musicianship classes." And I go, Judy, I have no idea. I don't know any English songs. So she said, okay, come over. One afternoon, she gave me about 30 songs, wrote them all up for me. That's what you do with them. Go.
So there you were, almost like an oasis in the desert.
Yeah.
You met Judy and you started off once again with your passion.
That's right, and it was amazing. And then she had also instigated in Canberra. They had summer schools, so she got me to be the director of the summer school for the primary years. So 200 children, and I had to work something out and do a performance and things, and having 3 little kids, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Wonderful. That, I guess without that, it would have been very difficult for you in Canberra.
Yes.
without having that outlet. Those opportunities, that challenge. To do that.
Yeah.
So that started you in Australia.
Yeah.
Where did you go from there?
We then moved to Adelaide.
Right.
And then, there was a time where we just built our family. Mm-hmm. We've got 7 children. We homeschooled them on and off. So I just, my passion was in building the family and really, putting a lot of time and effort into also their just well-rounded education. So singing and learning the recorder was the part I did. Piano was the part Mark did. I think by child number 5, we realised it's a little bit better if you farm out the music teaching because then it actually happens. So our last 2 children are actually professional musicians now. So
really?
Yeah.
But they had that benefit of being immersed in music, right from the word go?
See, all our children, people say, oh, you're so lucky, they're so talented. And I go, no, they're not talented. They couldn't escape.
That's what they did.
That's what we did. We didn't have a TV, so we would they all had to be part of the church choir. So they grew up singing motets and grew up singing masses and blah, blah, blah. So that's just, yeah.
So you had the music at home with your children.
Yes.
What happened to you professionally? What did you do?
So, as I said, we homeschooled our children, but there were times where it was just too intense. So having a Year 11 student and a toddler and one learning to read, it just became too much. So there were times where we used the school system. So we put our children in a small, tiny school up in the hills, but I didn't want my children to miss out on the music lessons or, informal or whatever I had done. And there was no music happening in the school except for the Festival of Music Choir. So I said, I just offered, shall I come in and do some music with the junior primary? And they said, oh, yeah, please come. And it started from there. A teacher who was on placement saw me do that. She then got a job out in Elizabeth, and the next thing I hear is a phone call from Elizabeth. Would you like to come and do our music program? Because we have no one. There was another call from a neighbouring school to the school my children were at. Oh, we are looking for somebody to do the recorder. We heard you have got somebody. So it just started spreading like that. And because my diploma of teaching was not acknowledged here by the Teachers Registration Board, I could only work as an hourly paid instructor.
Right.
So it's just started building up, so much so that by the end I was doing about 10 different schools, 10 different programs. Whatever the school needed or wanted, I was doing. So I was starting then to also become involved with the Festival of Music, and was conductor for them for a number of years, and then became assessor as well. And at the moment I'm working as a deputy conductor for the SAPS choir, which is the auditioned South Australian primary school choir. Yeah.
There you go. So from homeschooling children, but I get that music always was a thing that you felt was really important for children to have.
I knew.
As an you knew.
I
didn't
knew.
feel it, you just knew it.
I just knew that it's part of being human. Music is part of being a human. What happens when there are calamities? People start singing. People are looking for that. It's what we have in our soul. That's just, yeah. And to me, when you have a baby, what do? You coo, you sing, you know that will calm a baby down. And now it's really interesting now in my position going, learning about the research, and you go, yeah, I knew that all, Now it's actually written down in black and white.
How important music is.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And the lack, I mean, I don't mean this in a derogatory sort of way, but the fact that you were grabbed by so many schools, I hear you can do this, I hear you can do that. There was no one else around? No. No one with your background or passion or whatever?
Unfortunately, here in Australia, when you do teacher training, it's not inbuilt in the teacher training anymore. It used to be in the 70s and 80s, probably. See, I don't know how much it's still inbuilt in Switzerland as well. I can only talk about when I went through. I know it's still much, much more of a component because music is part of the curriculum. So teachers have to be trained in it. But here, it's a very higgledy-piggledy situation, and I think it's actually quite unfair to ask generalist teachers to have to teach music when they don't get taught at all. They don't have any skills to do it, and it's a very specialised thing. I think that's why there is not many teachers here who really have got, in-depth training, I would say, on the primary level.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there you were with all that training, with all that practical experience, coming from Switzerland, but not being able to register as a teacher.
No.
No.
So then after about 10 years of being itinerant and doing all sorts of stuff, I just felt it was just getting too much to keep track of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So then I decided, okay, I have to do further training. I have to do another degree. What shall I do to actually give me something as well? So I came across the Australian Kodai certificate course, which is a pathway into a master's. So it's a very practical 3-summer course, so 3 times 2 weeks of 10 days absolute intensive training in methodology, musicianship, conducting, analysing of song material. So really a lot of work. And I did that thinking then I would do the practical part, the theoretical part of the Masters. And I did 2 summers in Brisbane and 1 summer in San Francisco in Holy Name University. Because my oldest daughter was then living in San Francisco.
So it was
it was nice to go over there. And it was also, to me, it was really good because it just broadened the repertoire, it broadened the approach of teaching. To me, Kodai is more of a philosophy of teaching, music for all, singing as its base. So then I did the 3 summers.
Yep.
Then luckily I rang the Teachers Registration Board and said, I'm on the path to do the Masters. And they said, actually a Masters is only 2 years tertiary. You need 3 years tertiary. And I go, what?
They didn't acknowledge your study of the Kodai methods?
Oh, they did. Oh, no. That would have been part of a Masters. But a Masters is only 2 years tertiary.
And they wanted 3.
Yes. So I said, okay, can I do a nursing degree? And they said, yes. And you need to give me teacher's registration after that? And I said, yes.
So you could only do it as a postgraduate with a undergraduate degree of some sort, and you could only get the Masters after that.
Yeah. So I just gave up, and I just went to the con, and I said, look, I need a 3-year degree. How can I do it? And they were really, really lovely, and they gave me 2 years credit, so I could do just 1 year of a Bachelor of Music Education.
And that was at the conservatory?
That was at the conservatory, and that was great. I still worked full-time while I was doing it.
You still had children at home?
I still had children at home.
You weren't homeschooling as well, were you?
No, Anna was the last one who was home, and at that time we had a really good thing going on with a friend of ours who was homeschooling too. So Anna would go 2 days there and Mark would teach that child piano for free, very intensively, and the mother would teach Anna. And so the rest of the time she just had a set timetable.
But there you were having to do another degree.
Yes.
To do a Masters.
I didn't do a Masters.
You didn't do a Masters.
No.
You got the...
I got the certification and that was enough. And, you know, looking back now, I don't think, you know, I could do a Masters, but I don't see why.
No.
Really not. And then really for me, doing the certificate really showed me a very distinct way of going about teaching music in a developmental and very sequential way, which sort of, from a Swiss upbringing, that's how we taught everything. really foundations first and then layering things on top. And that was probably one of the main reasons why we started homeschooling was I could not understand the approach here in Australia, which is more you do a little bit of that and a little bit of that and a little bit of that and hope it all makes a whole thing.
So there's no structure, no sequential way of learning? That's what
I felt.
Right.
Now being in the system, I can see some structure and some sequence, and especially now they're really wanting to have those sequences. But coming from a culture where that was very much how you did it, I think that's why the Kodai approach for me makes so much sense.
And what is the Kodai approach?
So the Kodai approach is really, it's a developmental, sequential way of teaching children music. So you just see where the children are at and you build the repertoire to then get them into musical learning where they're at. You always go from what they know to what they don't know. You experience everything first, and it's all built on the voice because everyone has one. You
can take it with you.
You take it with you. You don't have to have, expensive stuff. Mm-hmm. It is great if you have instruments. Sure, we use instruments as well, but we use our body and we use very simple songs when you start off in a very restricted tonal set, and it starts with do 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 do, which is mummy, mummy, going back to that call which little children do. So it's really easy then for children to actually pitch those songs. They don't know that it's all these songs are just do 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 do, because it's different words for them and different games. So it's a very playful way of getting into music learning. But then if you go further with this method or philosophy of teaching, it becomes really, I would say, it really challenges their brain as well, because you're layering multifacets on top of each other. And you do things, when we went through our training as well, you have to do these sing and plays where your right hand does something and then your left hand, and you have to sing, and then your foot does something, and your brain really, really engages. And I think that's why I love this approach so much, because you can see the children really get fired up because it's serious fun.
Serious fun.
Yes.
How wonderful to think of something like that as being fun.
Oh.
I mean, that's what it should be, isn't it?
It is. But it's not just, having fun because, no. There is this expectation. And are we there yet? No, we're not. So what do we have to do? We have to try again. What is it what we need to do better? Yeah, so...
But you'll get there in the long run.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And then the joy in the children, in their face when they achieve something is just fabulous. Yeah.
You talked about having to know the children, where they're at. Does that require a continuous knowledge of these kids coming through the school? Is that the ideal? Is that what you need to be, a teacher who meets these kids in reception and goes with them and knows them?
That would be the ideal.
That would be the
ideal.
ideal.
That would be the ideal, that you have got, you take those children onto a path. So when I was doing music, as a non-contact lesson at school, I would say to the principals, don't judge my music program after 1 year. Judge it after 7 years.
Right.
Because music is not something you can just turn on and off. It's really that, see where it leads when you have that, consistent and continuous input from somebody who can take the child where it needs to go. Yeah.
And can you take any child?
I mean, sounds a bit cocky, but I think I can, because, you know, working with special classes, you just need to know where are these children developmentally.
Yep.
You know, if they are at toddler stage, you do things which you would do with toddlers, but perhaps use a bit of different material. I just did a session just before the holidays with a special class, and they were all, you know, strapping lads, year 7s, but I did exactly the same as I did with the reception class, and they had the best time, you know. So you just need to know where they're sort of at and then extend them there. Yeah.
What about your work in schools now? What
Okay. So at the moment I work, as you said, as a, now what was it? Music Education Network Field Officer for the Music Education Strategy.
Right.
Short MENFO of MESS, because the department loves acronyms. So my work at the moment has actually moved out of dealing with students in classes mainly to dealing with teachers and trying to help them. So how did I get there?
Yes.
I worked for, I would say, almost 15 years in basically 2 schools in the end as a specialist music teacher out in Elizabeth and at Paradise. And from there, it started about 4 or 5 years ago, I just felt, looking around, there were not many teachers, as you said before, who had the skill set to actually do stuff. So I just felt I would love to just share what I have learned, what I can do, and also through my involvement with the Kodai Association and doing workshops, I could see that people started asking me, can you just give me some idea where to go for repertoire or what I could use for this? And I would start, you know, having people come in the holidays, and I would just give them stuff and give them some lesson plans or give them some repertoire I felt was good. And then the National Music Teacher Mentoring Program came up. Richard Gill instigated that in 2015 with federal funding. We in South Australia started in 2017, and I was one of the first mentors. And with that program, I really loved the approach, was that you go into a school, you work with 2 junior primary teachers one-on-one as a mentor, and you have got 15 sessions with them and their class. And you just model music teaching, which they can do in their general teaching. So it was not the idea that it has to be a specialist subject for them, but that they can just improve what they're doing. Because for me, you know, with little kids, singing and rhyming and poems need to be part of what they do every day. So that started off, and because I was only doing, I think, about 0.6 in schools, I could fill the other days with doing mentoring, which was fantastic. And then I did that for 3 years. In the end, I was a lead mentor. And then the music education strategy came up through the department, which the department at the moment is all about world-class system. And they looked at world-class systems. And one of the hallmarks was that music was a standalone subject. It was not performing arts or, you know, 5 arts like in the Australian curriculum, but music as a valid standalone.
Right.
So I don't think politically we can go there and say every school has to have music. So the approach is more like, look at how fabulous music is. Look what it does. To me, personally, there is this quandary a little bit of music for its own sake, and music is so good because it does all these other things as well.
And what does it do? What other things does music do?
It enhances a lot of academic skills. It enhances reading. It enhances literacy learning. It enhances numeracy learning. It enhances executive functioning and all this stuff. If you want to learn more, go to Bigger, Better Brains, Anita Collins' research. It's amazing. As I said before, I knew all these things before, but it's amazing to see that. The schools now have a big focus on literacy, especially in the early years, phonological awareness, phonemic awareness. It's what we do in music every day.
Yes.
So this has really now, in my new position as part of the music education strategy, going in and upskilling teachers, this has been my way in to actually work with the junior primary teachers, because I can tell them, if you do this, can you see? Can you see the rhyme? Can you see all these skills you actually have to practice? And we are practicing it in a fun way.
Yes.
And look at the kids, they are engaged. And, half an hour flies away. And they have done all that stuff which they had to do, but we had fun.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I love music. I can't play it, but I love, and I remember the words to all the songs. But you asked me to quote Shakespeare or things I learned at school without the music. I've got Buckley's.
Yeah.
But so this is what children are learning. They're learning those neural pathways are being established where they are learning music, they're learning words, they're remembering them, they're doing all sorts of wonderful things with music.
Yeah, and it's all combined with movement.
Yep.
So that really, it's amazing.
And are you getting that message across to these junior primary school teachers?
I think so.
Or is that where the message should go there, but it should also go to parents, to principals, to school communities, to the wider community?
Oh, yes, for sure. But I think especially the early years teachers, they are open. And kindy teachers especially are very open. What has happened is because there has been so long where people didn't get trained and there was not the culture of singing or doing nursery rhymes at home anymore, you actually have to reteach that. There is sort of a whole lost generation of also parents who don't know that nursery rhymes are really good, even if they sound old-fashioned and whatever. Why are they good? Why are they still around? They have lasted so many years. There must be something which is intrinsically good about them. And it's funny that some of the new learning to read methods actually use nursery rhymes again.
Yes.
And, you go, oh, yeah. It's sort of like the wheel is all turning back round again. Yeah, so some of the kindies I work with at the moment, they're very much into, we need to get the parents in as well. And so I'm planning to do some work with parents as well. But it's huge. Yeah. What
are the barriers? Why did we lose that sense of singing to our children?
Because you can press a button and somebody else does it.
Yes.
There is music around everywhere. Music is all there. But that is not the same as when you do it with your voice to child, you look at that child. You have the child in front of you. I think the screens have done a huge damage, but it has started before, Radio, I think, is not as bad as TV because it's just, especially for little children, the visual stimulus is just too much.
It overwhelms the actual learning.
So I think, and also people are just time poor. So it's easier to just put the child in front of something where they seem to be mesmerised than sitting down, reading a book, singing a book, and having the confidence that you don't have to be the best singer in the world, that you can just do it and the child will love it. And I think that's one of the big things working with teachers too. The first thing they always say, oh, I can't sing, or I hate my voice, or as you mentioned before, I got told, I can't sing. And you just need to gently, let's just start. I had a teacher say to me, I don't sing in front of my children, I'm scared. I said, okay, let's just do some chants. Let's just say something in a rappy way.
Yep.
And then with time, you do it more dramatically and you're singing, So I think you can lead people to it, but there comes a point where you have to actually tell them, okay, now, let's listen. Did you hit that note really where I am or not? I heard you do it there, and then learn with them because it's all in the hearing. Once they hear that they're out, they can do something about it. But it takes time. But I believe you can get anyone to sing in tune.
And anyone to teach how to sing in tune? Is it a requirement, a prerequisite of teachers that they have some sort of understanding of music and some background in music?
It would be much better.
It would be better.
It would be much better. But we just have to start where we are at the moment.
Okay.
So if we can train people up a little bit, I believe also they need to become more musically aware themselves. So they need to, for me, the ideal will be a really good music teacher is also a really good musician themselves. And that's one of the tenets of Kodai philosophy too. Only the best musicians should become teachers, which is a very idealistic way of looking at it. I go at, we just work at our own musicianship skills wherever we are. It's not you have to be up there already. No, we start where we are and slowly, but recognising that I can always become better. So you don't have to be brilliant, but you can recognise that there is room for improvement, that everyone has the capacity to become better. And unfortunately, with a musician, you are never perfect.
There's always got to be a bum note there somewhere.
There is always room for improvement, yes. Yeah.
Is it also important for teachers to have that understanding of the importance of music to children's development?
Because without that, you are not passionate about anything, If you just have to do it because you get told you have to do it, it won't have any effect because you do it half-heartedly and,
And you don't create that sense of fun and
wonder and, you're not looking for the opportunities to really grow as well. Yeah.
So, Gabby, there are a couple of questions that we ask everyone so that we can get some idea of information that we need, that's interesting and interesting hopefully for our listeners. So one of the questions is, what resource or resources have you encountered in the last 12 months that has supported you either professionally or personally and helped you to grow in some way?
I would say the books which Lucinda Geoghegan has put out, which are called Songs and Games or Games and Rhymes. And she has got a series which start from tiny tots to 9 to 99-year-olds. So it goes from tiny tots to early years 2, middle years 2. And they are just full of the song material, which I have been using for years, but she just has this knack of doing a twist with another game. She's the lady from a music educator from Scotland, and in these COVID times, they have actually done daily activities with some of these songs, which her daughter is presenting, and it's just amazing. They've done 60 videos, which are freely available. At the moment, they're doing some for 5 to 8-year-olds. They have done some for little kids, and it's just, I've watched her teach at the summer school in Brisbane, and her way of approaching teaching at any level, from little ones to, tertiary, is just so full of joy and so full of rigour, but fun. And yeah, to me, those materials have just sparked also my interest in, I could actually do this song this way, or,
right,
not this is the way you do it.
So it's not prescriptive. You can gear it up to how you enjoy teaching, or to the student that you're teaching, or
exactly,
right,
and just using multiple levels of entry as well for children. Yeah.
And it's almost something in these COVID days, and hopefully it doesn't come back to children being educated at home by parents who haven't got any idea of what they're doing, or grandparents equally, having the opportunity to know about these sorts of resources that they might actually be able to use and use not to the same standard, I guess, that educators can do it, but another tool for parents or for home educators to use with their children.
Oh, yeah, and just the generosity of her to make that all available for free.
Wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
So another question. So if you had your own sort of space in schools, what statement or motto or saying would you have displayed in that space?
I would have music every day.
Yeah.
Singing.
Yeah.
But also then instrumental. So for the early years, say probably up to grade 2, it will be singing every day, music every day.
Yep.
And then starting with probably recorder, and then moving through, perhaps if it's ideal, a string program, so that children get exposed to all sorts of types of instruments, where they then can choose which instrument they should be doing. In my ideal world, it would be not just one instrument, it would be 2 or 3, so that you become a well-rounded musician, but also that you can sing everything before you play it, that you can read music. That is, to me, very, very important.
Right.
It should be a right of every child to learn to read music. Like you learn to read,
like a second language, like Italian or Japanese or something like that. They learn music.
Yeah, and that's how you have to look at it. It's learning a new language. It's learning new symbols, I think probably the ideal school would be almost like the one which is now built in New South Wales, I think, in the name of Richard Gill. There is a Richard Gill school,
right,
which there is music every day, but there is also sport. I don't know if I will go down the sport path that much, but I know, it's a good thing too.
It's a well-rounded.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Richard Gill, you've talked about him, and I found some absolutely wonderful things that he said. Is that some of the things he talks about with the importance of music to education, to well-rounded children, are they the sort of things that you remember, the quotes maybe that he says? I read a couple of articles about him, and one says parents need to know that unless their children are receiving a first-rate music education taught by teachers who know about music, their children's brains are being starved in part of the necessary stimulants that generate creativity in an individual. Are they the sort of things that you could remember and maybe put up and say, parents, look at this? How important?
I think too that music is for all. That's something Kodai was really big about. You know, music is for all. It's not just for the people who have the money to pay for it, but it's an innate right, and it's also an innate need of every human being to have music. And if you can be trained to become, then, you know, it makes you also then realise when you hear a symphony orchestra play how much more intricate and how much, you know, more in depth it is than a pop song. It doesn't mean that the pop song has no worth, but just to see the differences and that there is music for all occasions and for everything, the appreciation of music, if you had some music training, is much, much deeper, I think.
And perhaps the culture that you experienced as a child in Switzerland, if we could have that for our Australian children, would be wonderful. I wonder what it is that we haven't had that. Why is it? Is it that we're too vast, whereas Switzerland's sort of mountains and small villages and beautiful cities? But
I think it comes from historical background. Yeah.
And yodeling rather than saying yoo-hoo.
That's right. It's just, I don't really know. But when I was actually thinking of doing the Masters, I would have liked as a research question to pose the question, what if every child had a worthwhile music education? What would happen to the prison system?
We won't get onto that little lot, but absolutely.
That would have been interesting. Yeah.
Yes. What would our world look like?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So is that the next question? Might be that the answer to that. But what big idea would you like the listener to take away from this podcast?
That really, you know, we all are musical beings. Even if we think we are not. And just do the first step towards it. Start singing with or waving your arms when you hear something, you know. Yes, yeah. And
embarrassing your children when you sing aloud when you're doing the washing up.
Oh, yes, sure. Yes.
And maybe that's what we should be doing, sitting in the car talking and singing to our kids and humming and
just
immersing them in music and encouraging that from them as well.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, Gabby, you are a passionate person and this is wonderful. It's such a lovely thing to see. So thank you so much for making yourself available today and for being so honest and passionate about music and children and the importance. And keep on doing that. Our children need you out there.
You're very welcome. I keep on hounding them with sing.
Well, pity we can't go out with a song, but no, that might be just a bit too much. So I'm Robbie Howard and this has been Music Loop. Reach out, connect and be inspired to be active in music education.
Music Loop has been brought to you by the Australian Society for Music Education, SA Chapter, and through the support of the Music Education Strategy Innovation Funding. You can subscribe to Music Loop, asmesa.libsyn.com, asmesa.libsyn.com. If you have any feedback or would like further information about this episode, you can connect with Music Loop via email, musicloop@asme.edu.au, or join the discussion on ASME SA Facebook page. Show notes about how to connect and information about the episode are at asme.edu.au/SA. I'm Chris Narraway and this has been Music Loop. Reach out, connect, be inspired.